set up the most basic form of communication to your target audience. So just figure out, who do you want to do this for? And don't say everybody, because everybody says everybody.
Right.
But if you say everybody, it'll be for nobody.
Right. This is our first episode, and when I was putting this together, I've known you for a long time, you know, for 5 years now, and it's been a pleasure knowing you. But during this time, you know, when I was putting this concept together, I really wanted to basically bring value to people that are already part of like this interior design business world, and people who are not in Canada but overseas and are looking to migrate here and become a designer and pursue this path as like their long-term career. And when I was putting it together, I thought you would be the perfect person to come on as a first episode, because you've been doing this entrepreneurship game for a long time, and you have a very interesting story because you come from an acting background, and you've been doing it for, you know, ever since you were a kid. And now as an adult, here you are doing like a business OutLoud speaker school successfully. You're passionate about it. You're doing really good in the game. So tell me, like, how did that happen? Like, how did a person go from acting into business?
Yeah, well, it's really crazy to look back on it now, but basically I started as an actor at 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
My dad, my older sister, and my mom were all somehow in the acting, writing, directing business.
So
they mostly, it's like a family business basically, with no actual business. So like, no, they didn't pass down. But yeah, my mom was a writer and director in the theater. My dad was a writer and director and actor in the theater. And my sister was an actor in the theater. Now she's a writer as well, and producer. So mostly in the theater. They did do some film, especially my sister did some film and television. But basically they had, my sister and my dad shared an agent. And the agent knew our family really well. And then one day a movie came across, it was an audition for my sister. And there was a description for a little boy. And it was like this mischievous, like loudmouth, obnoxious little kid. And then our agent, who knew the family, was like, hey, does this remind you of anyone? Do you want Will to audition for this part? And my dad was like, hey, Will, do you want to audition for this part? Like, they never wanted me to be an actor because they knew how hard the life was.
Oh, really?
They didn't want my sister or me really to be actors. They hoped we'd get something more solid and stable. But my sister loved it. She was great at it. She was, I think, 9 or 10 at this time, maybe 10. And I was 7. So I went up for this part in this American feature film, and I got it.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
First audition ever, just happened to be this like pretty big American movie. And then it launched this kind of child acting career where pretty much every year I was doing either a TV show or a movie, you know, nothing too huge, but like, you know, working consistently. And then I was like, oh, great, this is my job. Like, I felt like I knew what my career was going to be at like 8 years old. And I really loved it. I loved being on film sets. I loved learning my lines. I loved being, like, trying to get into the emotions of the character and stuff. And it was just really fun. It was really fun being on film sets. Like, all the older crew members and actors took me under their wing and showed me how things worked. And I felt like I was just really loving the work.
And you were in acting school too, right?
So when I grew up, I kind of kept doing it. And then when it was time to go to school, like post-secondary, I was like, well, I'll go to theater school. Like, obviously, that's like, well, what else would I do? I didn't really consider any other career options. And then I went to National Theatre School of Canada in Montreal. And I just had the worst experience there.
No way.
Yeah. It was like the worst. My expectations of what it was going to be. My sister had also gone there right before. And so I met her class. I went to see some of her shows, and it looked like so much fun. It looked like they were like they were doing good work, but they were cool people in her class. And I was like, man, this is so cool. I can't wait to go. And when I got there, I don't know what my expectations kind of came crashing down. The way that the teachers treated the students was just awful, in my opinion. It was very cruel, very like emotionally abusive, talking about kids' appearances, talking about kids' like weight, you know, getting into their heads, asking them about like personal traumas in their past and digging it up and being like, yeah, use it in the scene. And it was like, it just did not feel right. And like, you know, we're talking like deaths, sexual assaults, crazy shit that they're dragging up in an acting class. And it didn't feel right to me and to a lot of other people. Whenever we tried to go to the administration and say, hey, we're not comfortable with this, they would be like, shut up and do what you're told kind of thing. It was not a nice time. And I wasn't doing very well mentally either at that time. And most of my classmates weren't either. So it was just a really like negative
space to be in. Yeah.
There were some great teachers there and I learned a ton, which I use now in my work. But at the time I was like, no more acting. I'm done with acting. I did about a year of acting afterwards. And then I was like, I quit. And so, yeah, that was kind of it for me for a while. And I took about 5 years off and started teaching English and then found my way into entrepreneurship.
And then on your website, you have a really interesting story about how that idea came to be. You were watching your partners who's helped you run this business, a show of hers or a theater performance of hers.
No, it was a class that
she was coaching, and then you kind of had that aha moment and you just ran with it. So I think one of the things that we all struggle with is, you have a great idea and you think, you can do it well, but you just don't know how to get started and you just don't know how to go to market with it, right? Because of course here you're surrounded by brilliant ideas and you're surrounded by so many hardworking people who are, doing so well in whatever they put their mind to. So you can feel like it's intimidating to go after your idea.
Totally.
And then secondly, like, where do I begin? What resources do I first tackle onto? Because I'm going to be a one-man show. Right. And as you know, once you started, you were a one-man show for a long time and then you started to scale up. So for a person who's just wanting to get that kind of, not motivation, but like where to get started, like what would you say would be that kind of gateway into going to market with their brilliant idea?
That's such an important question, and something that like only like 5 years later do I feel even a bit qualified to answer. Because I didn't know when I started, and I had to find out mostly by trial and error with two companies.
Okay.
My first one was in China before I started this one. That's where I found entrepreneurship, and we had no idea what we were doing.
So tell me more about why you were there. What were you doing? Like what made you travel from Canada there to pursue what?
So first, I had actually gone to Spain to teach English, to do that thing which a lot of people have done. A lot of native English speakers, I should say, are able to go get a job somewhere around the world with no qualifications or really any kind of like skills. And then you just walk in, they're like, hey, I speak English. Yeah, can I have a job? And then they give him one. And so I did that in Spain first. And I discovered that I love teaching. I wanted to travel, and I was using teaching as just kind of like a way to pay my trip.
Okay.
But I really found a love for teaching and learning languages as well. And then I started a company with some other friends of mine some of whom were in Spain with me, but all of us were high school friends. And we started a company in China to start our own school there. And we were all really winging it. None of us had started a business before. So we were all just figuring things out as we went.
So that was your first time going into like market with an idea.
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm going to do this.
I'm going to do it. And I didn't even know really what the word entrepreneur meant then. I had no clue what that even really was, or that it was even a thing that I could do. I think a lot of people, see what they have around them in their family and their friends, and they go, well, that's what I can do because I know people who are in that industry. If you don't really know anyone in an industry or a type of business, it's really hard to imagine yourself doing it. And you have no details, examples, or pictures of what it looks like.
Right.
So to get back to your question, what we needed first, whether it was a website, business cards, a flyer, a business plan, marketing materials, customer research, validation. Do people even want this product we're selling? We did none of that. We got to market, and then we realized we didn't even have the business license to run the kind of school we were wanting to run.
But that's actually a good thing, because that shows how passionate you are about something. Like, you want to do it. So you do it, and then you figure out the legalities and the licensing and all that, like on the back burner, as you feel like, okay, you know what, this is something like I can be comfortable doing. So for some people, it works backwards, but for you, like...
Well, yeah, we jumped in first. There's a great phrase for entrepreneurship, I think, which is, jump off a cliff and build the airplane on the way down. It's like, that's the thing, you just do it with no knowledge or resources or safety net, and then you figure it out. Which is what we did. And we ended up pivoting to doing some other stuff related to what we were doing. So it kind of worked out. But basically, I hurt my back when I was there. I had a big back injury. So I had to leave the company and come home to Canada. And then while I was here, to answer your question, I saw my business partner. And when I had the idea, I was like, okay, there's a business here. My instinct was, we have a service that we can provide. There's also a talent pool of people, other actors like us, who could be taught our method of helping people to do public speaking and communication skills and storytelling the way that actors know how to do it. So what we need are clients. But what we probably should have done was talk to some people first and be like, hey, do you guys want public speaking training from actors? Would you pay for this? How much would you pay for it?
Market research.
Market research. I did none of those on my first 2 businesses. I think I was very lucky, especially in this current business, that my instinct for whether or not people wanted this product or service was correct. But I should have done research. So I would say if you have that business idea, you go, okay, I think people want this. I think I can do it. Am I correct? I'm going to assume I'm correct, but check my hypothesis. So get started. Don't be like, I got to talk to 3,000 people before I even build a website. Just start. Get the certain things going. You need a website. You need some kind of explanation about what you do in some form, written down. Ideally, it can be a little, just 1-page document, like a PDF. It can be a landing page on a website. It can be a Facebook group, but just something concrete somewhere that says, this is who I am. This is my business. This is what I offer. And these are the people I'm offering to. You can always change that. But you just want to get something done. So, and then that's part of testing it on the market.
And I think what you said about that 1-pager document is really helpful, because when people use the word business plan, it seems so daunting, because you think that, oh, it's, this 10 to 50-page document. It must show all my financials prior. The SWOT analysis. And like, what are my, do like a market survey of, 10 customers in a pool and see what. So it's, and I've been there, because I remember in my path of entrepreneurship, I was trying to find funding, and I was trying to find, different kind of grants and government incentives that were out there that would support me in what I wanted to do financially. And the only way that I could do that was putting together a business proposal. And it just was such a long task. And I had to think about things 5 years down the road, which, I just couldn't take, like, I was overwhelmed by thinking about, I don't know what my financials are going to look like 5 years down the road. So I think that can be one extreme. And I personally would never. Over preparation. Yeah, it's not something I would advise anyone, because it just bottles you down, and it just gets you rid of that space, of that excitement. I want to do this. And then it just makes you worry about, am I good enough? Am I not doing this? So I think that 1-pager is very mandatory, because it helps you ground what you're wanting to do, but not so extensive where you're trying to lose your motivation. You're like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not even worth it.
And it's so different if you're asking for money versus if you are kind of bootstrapping and doing it yourself. If you're asking for money, you will need to do a lot more financial projections. You will need to demonstrate a lot more traction. You'll have to show investors that you've done something that proves that you can keep going with the business. And so that requires more work. So a lot of founders are like, what I should do is put a slide deck together and go pitch to investors. And they spend all their time going,
you mean right from the beginning?
Right from the beginning.
From the get-go.
I haven't even built anything yet, but I'm going to go to investors and be like, hey, can I have $100,000 or $1 million? Well, what do you have nothing yet. So my advice is set up the most basic form of communication to your target audience. So just figure out, who do you want to do this for? And don't say everybody, because everybody says everybody. But if you say everybody, it'll be for nobody. Who do you want to work with? You can say age, you can say gender if you care about that. You can say area, geographic location, something like, we want to target people in their 20s in downtown Toronto who are dog owners. Great. That's a really good start. What do those people need? What do dog owners need? They need dog products. They need veterinary services. They need dog food. They need toys. They need dog walking services. They need dog grooming services. So if that's who you're going for, what is the service or product you are providing for those people? And then put that out there and start finding where those people are. Do you have friends who you can talk to who will tell you what they want, what their problems are, what they'll pay for it? And then the other thing, and I teach all my clients this, but the very first question you should ever ask yourself is, what is the problem I'm solving? What is the solution I'm offering? And what is the prize that comes from implementing that solution? That's your business story.
It helps you structure
problem,
your
solution,
goals.
prize. Structure everything.
Right.
Every conversation you ever have with anyone about your business.
That's very interesting, because even if I was, let's say, at a networking event, or if I was invited to a Thanksgiving dinner and someone said, oh, here's a minister of so-and-so. And if I had that, mindset in my mind of the 3 strategies, then it's like, okay, there you go. I've interested this minister to invest in me,
in 20 seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though you weren't intentionally planning on doing so.
Exactly. And you never know who can connect you with somebody.
True.
So if you have a clear story, so what I call the business story, but it's basically your pitch. If you have a clear elevator pitch, a small 20 to 30 second explanation of why you exist, what you offer, for whom, and how you make their lives better, and then maybe the world in some way, you want to make people feel that people like doing things that they think is going to make the world a better place in general.
So I think if I were to apply that to the design world, because a lot of us interior designers, we are operating alone and at the very beginning. And then as we start to see traction, we then scale up and hire people to work with us. But I think at the very beginning, interior design is such a broad spectrum of services that can be provided to somebody. Of course, you can start by dividing it into residential and commercial. But even within that, I think what you're saying is just be very specific with who you're trying to cater to. So rather than being I service every residential house, that needs a renovation, I'm your interior designer. So you're saying that's actually not going to work.
No.
But what's going to work is if you advertise yourself as a designer, residential, landscaping, pool homes in the Toronto area only. So that way you are more likely to get more business, which is interesting because a lot of people don't think that way. They think that the larger my net is, the more customers I'm going to catch.
Exactly.
But then they're actually paying a fault to themselves by thinking that way.
Yeah, because if you can imagine it from yourself, if you drive a car, and whatever your car is, and you are driving down the highway and you feel like something's wrong in your car, and you see a sign that goes, we fix cars, all cars, trucks, school buses, blah, blah, blah. And you go, okay. And then you come inside and it's 2016 Toyota Corolla repair. You're like, oh, that's where I want to go. That's exactly my car. And it's just, you're going to be so much more likely to go to the one that is actually for you. And apparently, I haven't done too much research into this, but I've read some studies that suggest that even things that are using niche language, so we work with these people, specific, blah, blah, blah. Even people who don't fall in that category are still more attracted to the language of that ad or that website or whatever, just because it's more clear.
And it's telling you as a customer that I'm an expert at solving your problem.
Yes.
So come to me rather than going to a person who may be able to solve it, but might not be specialized in just that.
And the other analogy too that people sometimes use, when you go to a restaurant, it's we have pad thai, we have chicken karahi, we have pizza, we have tacos, we have sushi. You're like, what is this restaurant? I can't, the food cannot be good.
Multicultural, this is Canada.
There's no way the food's good. Yeah, exactly.
My chef knows every cuisine.
Every cuisine ever, how did that happen? So but if you say we do this thing and we do it really well, especially at the beginning, and you should always remember that this can change. Who we said we were targeting 5 years ago when we started is not now who we're targeting.
That's very true.
Changed.
Right.
And we've realized that this is kind of the ever updating change to your pitch, to your business, to your vision and purpose. That stuff changes every year pretty much. It can always change.
Look in the past 2 years with the pandemic and how the landscape of that for interior design has changed so much because, for example, staging, that was such an in-person thing, where people, when they were trying to set up their home, they had a stager come over. But recently I've been seeing there's been this new side of staging where it's all virtual, where they just take the pictures and they 3D model it and they drop-in furniture. So it's definitely more cost effective. But it's just like, it makes the process easier.
Right.
So if I was in the staging business, I would have to constantly reinvent myself like every year based on the changing like dynamic of our world and everything.
Yeah.
So it's so true. Like you could be super confident last year about a certain idea, but then a year later, you're like, this is not going to work. And then you have to be ready to go back to the drawing board and scratch it up. And I think that's one thing I want to talk more about is what kind of mindset does a person who's wanting to pursue their business or a person who's wanting to become an entrepreneur, what kind of mindset do they need to have in order to be successful in this game? Because we've talked about all these things, right?
Yeah.
So just like what can make them successful and not set them up for failure if they want to do this?
So I think it should be said that if you think about the like top level of any organization, there's like the CEO, there's the COO, the chief operating officer or chief officer of operations, whatever the hell they call it. There's the CFO of finance. Like those are different skill sets. In general, the CEO is a sort of creative, visionary type, but is always distracted by new things. It was like, hey, let's go do this. And it's like, oh, hold on. Yeah. And then the CFO is very numbers and data oriented. It's like, well, we shouldn't do that because that'll cost us $30 a month. And they're a stickler for like details and numbers. Then there's the COO who is about managing people and logistics. And so there's not only one right type to be an entrepreneur, but in general, we're probably talking to the CEOs, like I would guess, in your audience. The people who are starting the business alone or who are going to be the main person pushing their business forward. In general, the personality type that I think I have, which is helpful, I have a lot of things which are not helpful for it, but it's just like relentless, almost stupid optimism.
Oh, wow.
Where you're just like, everything's going to be fine. It's all going to work out because
that's so hard though. That's such a hard skill. It's not easy, It's
not easy. And I think I have it naturally, but I also think I've cultivated it too. And you can practice this literally by just saying it to yourself out loud or in your head and breathing. So when something goes wrong in your business and you go, shit, I think this is going to ruin everything. You literally just sit there, breathe, and say, it's all going to be fine. It's all going to be fine. Even if it feels like bullshit, even if it feels the world's collapsing, you just repeat that to yourself enough, breathe in enough, and eventually you'll start to absorb that message. When my back was hurting, I had a specialist come in to work with me to do to do yoga that was meant for people with injuries. And she actually had me say to myself as I was like doing these really intense, I had intense pain, but I was doing these very small movements. And she's like, I just want you to say out loud, even if it feels stupid, I'm okay. I'm okay. And I was like, I don't do that. This is dumb. But then I was like, okay, I'll just try this. And I would just go, I'm okay. And then literally after a few weeks of that, my body started believing that. And the tension started to go, the pain started to get less because of just this mindset thing of just like, everything is going to be okay. Of course, you can go too far with that and be like, hey, do you want to invest $100,000 into this like stupid NFT thing? You just go, everything's going to be okay. Here's my money. Like you can get into trouble that way. But in general, once you have committed to saying, I want to really try and make this business work, there will be many moments where you think it's not going to. And the key during those moments is to cultivate that optimism and go, it is going to work out. And I'm going to trust that. I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. I'm not going to just sit back and do nothing. I'm going to try to do everything
proactively,
change things, fix problems, make more money, save more, negotiate with people, whatever I have to do to fix this issue. But mentally, I'm going to tell myself that it will all work out. And then usually it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think your business is not going to succeed, it won't. If you think it will, it probably will.
So when does a person know to pull the plug then in that situation? Like how do they know that, I'm going to keep on going, but this is the last straw. I don't think I can do it anymore. Like what are some of the signs that they should look out for to be like, okay, you know what, this is it for me?
When you're completely out of money.
Oh, okay.
So literally, I wouldn't stop until when you can't pay anyone,
your bills,
when you're in debt, when you can't even pay your most essential workers, when you can't cover their payroll, when you can't pay outstanding debts, when you just have to shut the company down because there's no hope.
Right.
That's when you stop.
That's brilliant. I think
Never
shouldn't
before.
stop outside of that reason.
Yeah.
Like just
if you really love it, if you really love it,
believe in it,
you can always change it. Like we talked about pivoting and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't have to say like, well, if I can't sell this exact product or service to this exact target customer, then the business is over. You can say, so everything I've built, my website, my team, my relationships, especially like everything is your relationships in this game. If you can hold on to those, but then just give yourself a new logo, you can even totally rebrand whole new services. But if you remain like in the game and active, you can continue. But if you are so broke that you can't pay anybody or do anything or honor your debts or commitments, then maybe pull the plug. But keep going unless it's there.
There's a designer that I follow. She actually is a huge role model for me, and I started listening to her vlogs and her daily kind of journey into the business.
Yeah.
Before I started to do my own design business, and one of the things that she strongly believes is the power of manifestation. It's like, if I believe that I can do this, not right away or tomorrow, but in 3 years' time, I'm going to do everything in my capability to take those steps so that I reach that destination.
Yeah.
And it all comes with, waking up every morning, telling yourself it's going to be okay, or waking up and there's another workshop that I saw online. It was wake up and, look into the mirror and say, I like myself. Which is good for, it's a hard thing to do because, just a couple of days ago, I came through a struggle and I was like, you know what? I don't like myself. Why I don't believe in myself. Why can't I do anything right? And then I had to remind myself, like, you know what? No, go to the bathroom, look at yourself, make eye contact and say, I like myself, because you need that assurance.
Even if it feels like a lie.
Even if it feels like imposter syndrome, right? Yeah. You want to just do that.
Yeah.
So I think manifestation is really important. And then just the resiliency that you talked about. It's like, okay, don't give up, even though it seems like you must give up today, but just keep going as long as there's $1 or $2 in your
exactly.
Right?
And as long as you can still, as long as you trust that you can still make money and continue to at least like break even or hold a manageable amount of debt, then keep going, because you never know if you're a sales conversation away from getting that huge client that changes everything. So right now, recently, I was going through a really, really difficult time where I was like, oh my God, everything's falling apart. And I spoke to a mentor friend of mine, and he went, we are going through the same thing as you, but just with like at a higher level. So his business is more established than mine and has like, more, they have investors, they have like board members, they're just a bit more like kind of established and there's more moving pieces, but he's going through the exact same cash flow issue as I am.
And it's interesting because from the outside, if you look into what he's doing, you're going to think, whoa, like this
they're
is
perfect.
Me.
Everything's great.
I want to be like that. But because you have that inside scoop, you know that even a person like that who you think is doing great is having to face many problems.
Apparently what he said to me was those never go away.
Right.
They just get...
That's so true.
Yeah, they just get more complex and bigger, and the dollar amounts that you're worried about are higher. So you have to cultivate that ability to just breathe through and go, this feels really intense. And this relates to a lot of the work that I do with my clients, which is if you're on stage or in a podcast or on the radio or on TV or in a boardroom pitching to an investor, likely most of us get this feeling that, oh my God, this is scary. This is a big moment. I need to say this right. I need to think clearly, and I need to be, warm and expressive and clear and confident and professional looking, but not too, like we have all these thoughts in our head that make us nervous. And obviously public speaking fear is pretty deep seated. But if you can breathe through that and go, this feels really intense, but it's actually just a conversation and it's not that big a deal. And this, a moment like this will come and go. I'll have much more of these in my career. Even if I like pee my pants and run out crying, it's probably okay. I can get over that at some point.
So another thing that a friend of mine said to me, and it's always stuck with me, is entrepreneurship is like skiing, but uphill, right? Because it may seem impossible, and it probably could be in some instances, but when people, because on Instagram and on social media, I get a lot of messages from, people outside of Canada who are wanting to come here and pursue this path. And one of the biggest questions that I get is, oh, like, you're doing so great. And, I want to do this. And what advice would you give me? And I always think to myself, I'm like, it may seem like a glamorous thing from the outside and from because visually you want to put your best self forward, right? Yeah. I'm a designer, so I want to make sure that I put the best content out there from like interior spaces or whatever. So of course you're going to see the best version of me. Yeah. But that's one thing I always tell these people who are looking to become designers themselves is that it's not going to be easy, and be ready for that. And if you're not ready for it, then you should know now not to do it. Yeah. That's one thing. Like, do a favor to yourself and not pursue something like this. Yeah. Maybe you will find that your personality is better suited working in a large team under direct supervision, getting paid.
And that's okay.
And that's okay too, of course. Like, getting paid Monday to Friday. There's so much security in that. There's financial comfort in that, which doesn't come to people like you and me. Like, every day.
I wish sometimes I had a big corporate job and just could be like, well,
get a check every Friday, right? And
totally.
And it would be great. But, you said, like, in order for you to do well, like, every day you have to wake up and think about, okay, how can I make money today? How can I do better today? It's just a reality of what entrepreneurs do. Yeah. And that's a reality that I really hope to let people know that that is what it is,
Right. If you don't like the idea of having insane ups and downs of emotion.
Right.
I got this guy worked on our car the other day, and we were chatting afterwards, and he was like, yeah, I have my own business. I was telling him about mine, and we were just sort of comparing notes, and he goes, bro, you cry alone in your own, you cry alone. That was the thing he kept saying. It's like, you cry alone. And it's such a good thing, which is like, if I try to tell my wife Sarah, about what I'm going through, she listens, she's sympathetic, but there's no way, she just can't understand.
I 100% agree, right?
All the intricacies of everything I'm holding in my mind that I'm panicking about. It's impossible to share that with your partner,
or have someone understand,
or have someone understand. And another entrepreneur will get the feeling, but of course they also can't know all the details. So you have to be comfortable with knowing that it's quite lonely a lot of the time. It's huge swings of emotion, from feeling on top of the world to feeling like just a piece of crap the next day, and being okay with those swings. And then also knowing that, like, a lot of the work that you're doing is the things are not going to come as fast as you think they are.
Right.
You think, I'm going to start business. You say, oh, most businesses are profitable in 2 to 3 years. But maybe they'll be profitable, but you want to reinvest in your business and grow it. And so you might not even be taking any money. It may be 4 or 5 years before you can even pay yourself properly to run the business. You don't know.
Oh, you don't pay yourself for the first 2 years. You pay every other expense and every other bill before you can start to pay yourself. And that's actually very interesting, because I was trying to get a line of credit from the bank to, invest in a new idea that I had. Yeah. And I got rejected because the bank is like, okay, you've made money as elevated living, but as Sarah Adnan, you don't have income showing, so I cannot approve anything to you. And that was one of the biggest shocks to me, because I'm like,
your personal, and your personal.
I have a house and everything, but you're rejecting me, and so I had to put that on the back burner and think of other sources of avenues that can pump that idea and then go. So that was a challenge that I wasn't expecting, but then I had to learn along the way.
And being okay with that disappointment.
And being okay with that. I was like, okay, I cried alone in the bathroom. And, my husband was like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're always upset. And I'm like, just let me be. I'll be okay. But I think when I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to have to re-strategize on how I'm going to do things. So
so if we go back to the original question of like that mindset, or what mindset you need to be an entrepreneur. So that optimism and that resiliency is really important. And then I also really, really would suggest is just being super, super curious about people. As much as you can, read, listen to podcasts, just observe in, the world as you talk to people, how people operate, what makes them sit up and listen, what makes them kind of turn off, how you feel when other people are talking to you. So like communication, stories, interpersonal communication skills, how, like me talking to you right now. Is my voice annoying to you? Is my voice charming? Is it so? What is it about that, the way I'm talking? Is it something that you could listen to for a little bit, but not too long? My body language right now to you, am I making you feel seen and heard by the way I'm facing you? Or am I kind of turning away a little bit and maybe shutting you out and just becoming, most of us don't analyze it, this
100%.
So developing as keen an interest in human beings, especially the way they talk to each other and the way they react to stories and communication, both written and spoken. Develop like as much curiosity as you can about that, and that will serve you so well.
I love that.
When you have to pitch, when you have to do market research, when you have to convince somebody to partner up with you, when you have to reach out to an influencer or a podcaster or somebody else and say, hey, can I be on your show, or do you want to be on my show? Whatever those business relationships that you're developing, it's so important the way you email people, or the way you speak on Zoom, or the way you speak in face-to-face, and the way you make them feel is so important. And so the more you can like teach yourself about that, and there's so many ways to do it.
I love that advice of just having your brain stimulated at all times. Like, don't be dull. Don't be sitting there thinking that, I don't need to listen to this guy talk about motivation.
There's nothing I can learn from this person.
There's always something to learn.
Finding what you believe in and care about as it relates to your business is also really important. So developing an interest in people is important, but you can't just please everyone, because then you're not standing by your words and so part of this thing we were talking about, finding your niche. Well, if you believe everything and you never say anything that offends anybody, well, then you're kind of not honoring who you are and what you really stand for. So for me, I still have a problem with this. I'm probably a people pleaser by nature. I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want to make anyone mad, but I have to try to honor what I really believe. One thing that I feel very strongly about is that one of the courses we offer are for non-native English speakers. And non-native English speakers mostly who are coming to Canada or to the US and they're working for these companies. They're not being taken as seriously as their native English speaking counterparts. They're not getting as promoted as much. They're being cut out of a lot of the social aspects of the job. People think that they're not as good as their job because they lack the confidence and clarity in English, even though they're brilliant people and they speak maybe 4 or 5 languages even, but it's just when it comes to communicating in English, which is the language of the company, they're just a couple steps behind. So as an ex-English teacher, that's really important to me to work with them and help them, because I think it's just an unfair disadvantage and it's something we can address in our courses. Sometimes when I work with the companies, they go, oh, you can't help them with their accent or their grammar because that'll make them feel offended. But when I actually talk to the people who I'm working with, they say, we want that help. Mostly, not everybody, but mostly they want help with their accents. They want to be told if they're mispronouncing something. They want to be told if they're not being understood, and they want to know if they're using grammar or misusing vocabulary. I try to focus the most of the course on communication and storytelling skills, but I do like to address those issues if and when they come up. As a coach, if I see somebody not being clear, then I want to say, hey, you're just not getting that TH sound quite right. Let's work on that a little bit. Right.
Without having the thing, I don't want to upset the person.
And 99 times out of 100, they go, thank you so much. Nobody ever told me that before. And so to me, I have to be clear about that. Some companies, when they say, we don't want you to work on accent or grammar or vocabulary, I say, okay, well then maybe our course is not quite right for you, because if that's your main concern, then maybe we're not.
And that's good though. So you're deciding when to say no to a job or a project because you have a certain groundwork around what you're offering, the way it works. So that's important too, because some people, and actually, designers, and I've been there many times. When I was starting out, like I just said yes to everything because I was like, you know what, it's fine. It's going to get me out there. But then now that I'm a little bit more familiar with the territory and I've built, a portfolio, now I'm able to be selective with who I want to work with, because back to the earlier point of like targeting a niche, I want to only take on jobs that are serving that niche market and not just like every other, design project imaginable. So
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Who would you say your niche is now?
So right now it's residential interior design for like townhomes and single detached in the suburban areas.
Amazing.
So I'm no longer doing like full demo rental, from the ground scale up. That that can be a lot of work, but now that's what I'm focusing on. Yeah. So it helps me.
That's really great, and that's pretty niche and that's pretty clear about like And this idea too, like I'm sure there are also personality types.
Oh, 100%.
That you wouldn't want to.
So many different personalities.
Yeah. And so that's also clear too, is like, and when you first start out, you have to kind of take everything just to make money.
Right, of course.
Testimonials, to get experience. But yeah, once you start to build, then you can say, okay, I don't like working for a job where somebody thinks it's okay to yell at me. Not something I'm interested in.
Right,
yeah?
100%.
Maybe some people are like, you know what, that's fine. That's their problem. I'll let them yell at me. It's part of the job. Some people might say, I don't want to work with anybody who lives too far away from me because I just don't want to waste my time in transit. It's not how I want to live my life. And so after cultivating the awareness of how people talk to each other, after cultivating the awareness of what kind of messages resonate with people, after being clear on your values and stuff, you can also just look at like, what kind of a life do you want? The reason we do this thing in the first place is so we can
be free,
control of our lives and be free and not be stuck to somebody else's schedule and rules, or demands or rules. Right. Yeah. So, you do have to get established first so that you're not like, I won't work with you if you don't do that. If I got, I'm like, no, actually, I need the money. You have to be a bit more flexible. But once you feel like you have a product that people want and will pay for, and you start to figure out a bit more who it's for and who you want to work with, also check in with what you want, the kind of life you really want, and don't get caught in an endless loop of like, I need to hustle, because hustling does not equal success. That's I think a huge misnomer.
I love that. And I recently learned how to think like that, because for the past 2 years I was hustling and I thought that was the way to get it.
Yeah, just more hours.
Literally just a couple of weeks ago, I heard this lady give this, coaching around how to be successful. And she said, you should never have a hustle goal because it seems panicky and urgent and desperate. You should always have an aligned goal where your thoughts and your beliefs are all aligned for the long term.
Right.
And so now I'm proactively trying my best to think that way versus being like, let's go, let's get this done, whatever.
Yeah.
So I really want to ask you, aside from that, what does success mean to you?
Yeah. Well, it's a really interesting question, especially now because we're about to have a baby.
Oh,
so yeah. And it's so exciting.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. And like, I can't wait to start that part of my life.
Right.
But it's terrifying and it's unknown. I don't know how things are going to change. I don't even know how I'm going to change, how like what I value. I have some sense that I'm probably going to want to be at home a little more and not want to be traveling as much for work and stuff. But in general, I think I have become much more family focused since I started my business, where all I wanted to do was work before. And now I want to just spend much more time at home. And I have to, like, every weekend, it seems like I have to give myself a little talk where I'm like, it's okay that you shut your laptop and that you're not checking your phone and that you're just in the park with your dog and your wife and your soon to be,
and not feeling guilty about doing that.
And just being like, this is actually why you work. When I moved to Spain, they have a famous saying in Spain, which is, I think it's, no vivimos por trabajar, trabajamos por vivir, I think, which means we don't live to work, we work to live. And that's like a big, sort of one of the first sayings you learn when you're a foreigner in Spain, is that's a big part of the Spanish culture. And you can feel it and see it, like, the way they take siestas, the way they like stay out till midnight. I remember one time being late for a business coaching thing that I did, and I ran into the building. I was like, I'm so sorry, everyone. I was like 3 minutes late. And they were like, it's okay. And then they're like, have you had a coffee yet? I was like, no. They're like, go downstairs.
And here it's like,
I'm just like panicking because I think I'm going to get yelled at or fired. And so it's a different culture. And I think, for anybody coming from another country and a different culture to Toronto too, especially, Toronto's a pretty effed up mentality. And
so they cancel you right away. You're not suited up. You're not booted up. You don't
look right. You don't sound right. I don't think you're important enough. I don't think you're working hard enough. The level of competition, the level of competition, the level of like judgment, the level of, you're only as good as your work. That is really, I think, prevalent in Toronto. And I know a lot of people who are from here and who have moved away, and they're just like, man, it's so much nicer out of that. And so obviously living here, I still fall into that. But I would say is what success I think is going to look like, and for me, more and more will be, how can I do the work that I love, which is this stuff, but in a way that facilitates what I truly believe are the most important moments, which are like time with the phone off and the laptop off, paying attention to my wife, paying attention to the dog, and then of course paying attention to the baby when the baby's here, and just like really living in those moments without my mind on work. And so it's obviously way easier to do that if you have enough money. It's way easier to do that if you feel fulfilled in your life's work. So you still have to work hard, and you still have to, like, I think, I don't know this yet because I haven't had the baby, but like, I think it's still important even after a kid. And I've heard this from a lot of people, that you don't, give up your whole identity. You still try to feel like you're doing something you believe in and care about, that is going to, motivate you and excite you. But if you're not around, you are missing out on what is truly the best thing.
I love that. And I think that's a great way to sum up everything that we've talked about. Is no matter how ambitious you are, how, focused you may be in achieving a certain goal, like in the end, you have to be present in every moment that you're doing with your family, and not take those moments take advantage of those moments. So.
And with your clients too, it's another thing.
Right.
This isn't as like deep and emotional, but you shouldn't get so caught up in how you run your business that you're forgetting about why you started it and who you help. Right. So we help entrepreneurs, and we help like professionals, in the corporate world. If I'm so worried about working hard and hustling and getting new clients that I'm not taking care of the clients we already have, what's the point?
What's the point? It's like Jerry Maguire, right?
Yes, right. That's exactly right. Yeah. He's so focused on the big football players that he has on his roster that, he wants to. And
then he loses that job because he puts out that memo.
Yeah, right.
And then he ends up working for that athlete.
Cuba Gooding Jr. Yeah.
Heart and soul into it.
That's right.
And that's actually the money.
It's funny because I haven't seen that movie like in so many years, and I forgot that it's kind of about that.
Yeah, it is. It's very much about that.
That's like the main theme of it. Is focusing and he develops a relationship with Renee Zellweger. That's another great thing too, is like watch movies and read fiction and analyze it on like a human level. That's another thing to do, is like, a lot of people I meet only read nonfiction or only watch documentaries or just like trash.
Right.
So they're not really like looking at great stories, and they're not thinking about what makes us human in the way that you do when you watch a lot of good film or good television or read good literature. If you can do that, then you're like, you're checking in with what it means to be human. And then you can talk to people, you can sell, you can pitch, you can inspire, motivate, all the things you need to do as a leader. You'll be able to do that. And just don't lose sight of why you started it, for your own life and for the people that you want to help.
What else do you have going on in your life?
Did you mean on a business sense or a personal?
No, in any sense. Like, are you like later down today? What are you doing? I know you're working on music. You're so talented, man. Like, you're doing everything. This guy is just so amazing. Okay, so what are you doing now?
I have an album coming out next week, I think. Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun to do this.
You found time to do that among everything else. So kudos to you.
I'm an idiot. Yeah. I'm an idiot, a masochist, and a stupid optimist. But yeah, this year was really fun because I knew we were having a baby. So I kind of had this panic of like, I've got to get my whole bucket list done. So I ran a marathon. I'm putting out my second album, and I published a book, which is coming out later this month.
We have a book too. We have a business, we have an album, we have a book, and we have a baby coming. So you are going to be super busy.
Yes, very, very busy. But I wanted to get those things done before the baby came, so that kind of chill a little bit. And so that's kind of the main thing I'm thinking about now, is like, how can I? So the other thing is I hired two new employees for my business, and I've trained a lot of the employees in my business how to take over a lot of my tasks while I'm on maternity leave.
Delegate.
So what I'm really excited is, being able to delegate stuff and have the business keep going, so I can actually be around, help Sarah with the baby when the baby comes, help, just be present, help take care of the dog because obviously Matilda's going to get less attention once the baby comes. So that's what I'm really excited about the most, is like, having checked off some of these items that I wanted to check off, and then enjoying them, right? Like, it's going to be fun to promote my book when it comes out. It's going to be fun to like share my album and maybe play a show or send it to people who want to hear it, and just kind of enjoying the fruits of the labor, I think. And that's what I'm most excited about. And then I want to see my other main life goal is to learn Urdu.
You're already doing so well.
No, it's bad right now.
You're doing really well, I've heard.
Good lessons.
Oh, no.
But that's important to me. And so if I can take some time, I think to get a teacher, practice the writing, practice the speaking.
So you want to learn how to write too?
At least read.
Okay.
And I think learning how to write in a different alphabet is important for learning how to read.
Right.
The more you do you write the alphabet, the more you can recognize it. And so that's like a main thing that I want to do outside of like work and baby stuff is like learn Urdu. And
Well, it's been so much fun.
Yeah, this is awesome.
We've had so many great conversations. And so if people wanted to learn more about OutLoud Speaker School, where can they find you?
They can find our website at outloudnow.com. They can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn is where I'm most kind of active. I try to post daily public speaking, communication, and storytelling tips for entrepreneurs and leaders. So I try to post a lot of like practical things, valuable insights, exercises, and ways to think about the way they're communicating. So at Will Greenblatt. Is where they can connect with me. And then, that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to keep you posted on our channel.
Amazing. This was so much fun, Sarah.